the fuck is going on? I want the club sandwich. I want the cold Mexican beer. I want a $10,000 a night hooker.
Johnny Mnemonic, 1995, is one of the strangest action cyberpunk movies ever made, and today we're diving into 20 weird facts you didn't know about this Keanu Reeves cult classic. Fact 1. The entire movie is set in January 2021, a future date that felt distant when the movie came out in 1995. In that version of the future, the world is crippled by a pandemic called nerve attenuation syndrome, or NAS. Millions are dying, and megacorporations are hoarding the cure. The similarity to what happened during the COVID era is uncanny. The film unintentionally predicted that a worldwide plague would define 2021 and that corporations would control access to life-saving treatments. Fact 2. Unlike any real pandemic, NAS is not caused by a virus. It is caused by technology itself. The movie explains that all the electronics around us are poisoning the airwaves and making people sick. They call it the Black Shakes, and it's blamed on information overload. In other words, too much data is frying human brains. In the age of smartphones, social media addiction, and constant notifications, this satire feels more relevant than ever. Fact 3. For all its campy style, Johnny Mnemonic was shockingly accurate at predicting future technology. In the movie, video calls are a normal way of communicating. Airport security scanners check passengers' bodies. Electronic ID cards and digital passports are standard, and corporations monitor everyone through mass data surveillance. All of these predictions have become reality. Watching it now, you'll see early versions of VR headsets, voice-activated assistants, and a connected cyberspace that looks a lot like the modern internet. Fact 4. But not all of its predictions were right. One of the funniest future technologies in the film is the idea that people would carry miniature fax machines in their pockets. Instead of email or cloud storage, they literally fax important data to themselves. At one point, critical decryption keys are faxed across the world. Even by the mid-90s, this idea was outdated. The movie also features a monomolecular laser whip weapon wielded by a Yakuza assassin. It looks cool on screen, but thankfully, lethal wire garrots have not become everyday tech. Fact 5. The cast of Johnny Mnemonic is one of the strangest in any action movie. Keanu Reeves stars as Johnny, a human data courier with a storage chip in his brain. But around him is a lineup that makes no sense on paper. Dolph Lundgren plays a homicidal cybernetic preacher. Ice-T is the leader of a hacker gang called the Low Techs. Punk rocker Henry Rollins appears as a cyber doctor. Famous Japanese actor Takeshi Kitano plays a corporate boss. Add Udo Kier as a sleazy handler and Dina Meyer in her film debut, and you've got one of the wildest ensembles of the 90s. Fact 6. Dolph Lundgren's role wasn't even supposed to exist in the way it does. In William Gibson's original short story, the street preacher was a minor villain. But when Japanese investors insisted on including Lundgren, the filmmakers didn't know what to do with him. They rewrote the character as a bizarre cybernetic Christ figure, complete with long hair, biblical rants, and a crucifix knife. The result is one of the weirdest action villains of all time, a muscle-bound preacher assassin who quotes scripture while trying to kill Keanu Reeves. Fact 7. Speaking of weird, Johnny Mnemonic features a cybernetic dolphin hacker. Yes, a dolphin. His name is Jones, and he was once a Navy test subject before being rescued by the underground rebels. In the film's climax, Johnny teams up with Jones, who wears a VR rig and uses sonar brainwaves to hack corporate data systems. Watching a dolphin in cyberspace blow up electronics is as insane as it sounds, and it's one of the main reasons the movie is so unforgettable. Fact 8. Jones the Dolphin was originally going to be even darker. In Gibson's original short story, Jones is addicted to heroin. The filmmakers actually shot a scene showing the dolphin's heroin dependency, but it was cut from the theatrical release. Even in a movie full of bizarre ideas, a cyber dolphin shooting up was apparently too much for audiences. Fact 9. Johnny's brain implant has a storage capacity of 80 gigabytes, expandable to 160 gigabytes with the device. The plot kicks off when he overloads it with 320 gigabytes of stolen data, a deadly amount that threatens to kill him. Back in 1995, 160 gigabytes was marketed as half the Library of Congress. Today, most people have more storage in their smartphone or on a cheap USB stick. The entire movie revolves around the danger of carrying an amount of data smaller than what we casually download every day.
I want room service! I want the club sandwich. I want the cold Mexican beer. I want a $10,000 a night hooker!
Fact 10. The movie includes one of Keanu Reeves' most notorious meltdowns, now immortalized as a meme. In the middle of the chaos, Johnny snaps and screams that he wants room service, a club sandwich, a cold Mexican beer, and a $10,000 a night hooker. This bizarre outburst was written at the last minute because director Robert Longo wanted a scene where Johnny vents all the frustrations of the production. It ended up being the most quoted moment of the film, replayed endlessly on the internet. Fact 11. Johnny Mnemonic was directed by Robert Longo, an artist and music video director who had never made a feature film. Longo later admitted that he felt completely out of his depth, like he was riding a bike without handlebars. The production was so chaotic that the producers considered firing him mid-shoot and giving the job to the second unit director. He barely survived to finish the film and never directed another feature again. Fact 12. The film was never supposed to be a big action movie. Gibson and Longo wanted to make a black and white, $1.5 million art film inspired by Alphaville. But studios weren't interested in art cyberpunk. They wanted spectacle. Sony eventually greenlit the film for $26 million, and when Keanu Reeves suddenly became a star with speed, they retooled it as a summer blockbuster. The end result is a strange hybrid of art house ideas and Hollywood action cliches. Fact 13. Before Keanu Reeves signed on, the role of Johnny was given to Val Kilmer. Kilmer dropped out, most likely to take Batman Forever, and Keanu was brought in at a bargain $2 million salary. Because both Gibson and Reeves were Canadian, the film shifted production to Toronto and Montreal to qualify for tax breaks. At $26 million, it became the most expensive movie ever shot in Canada at that time. Fact 14. The studio actually considered changing the title because they thought audiences wouldn't understand the word mnemonic. Suggestions included calling it Johnny Gets His Gun, which would have been a disaster. Thankfully, the original title stuck, even if most people still mispronounce it. Fact 15. Japan received an extended cut of the film that runs 103 minutes instead of the US theatrical 96. This version includes more character development for Takeshi Kitano's corporate boss, a longer sermon from Dolph Lundgren's preacher, and several extended dialogue scenes. It also featured a completely different soundtrack by composer Michael Dana, with contributions from the band Black Rain. The American release replaced this with a more generic score by Brad Fiedel. For years, the Japanese cut was almost impossible to find, fueling the movie's cult reputation. Fact 16. Fans of William Gibson noticed that Dina Meyer's character, Jane, felt familiar. That's because in the short story, Johnny's bodyguard was Molly Millions, the same cyborg assassin who appears in Gibson's novel Neuromancer. But the film rights to Molly were owned by another studio, so Gibson wasn't allowed to use his own character. Instead, Molly was renamed Jane, stripped of her trademark implants, and given a backstory involving the NAS disease. It's one of the strangest cases of an author being blocked from adapting his own creation. Fact 17. The low-tech hideout called Heaven was the film's most expensive set. Built inside a Toronto warehouse, it cost over $3.5 million. The set was suspended 15 feet in the air to simulate being under a massive bridge, and it was packed with scavenged junk, old TVs, and dangling cables. When William Gibson visited the set, he said it felt like stepping into one of his stories made real. Fact 18. One of the most iconic visuals of the film is Shinji's monomolecular laser whip. Hidden in his thumb, it's a glowing wire that can slice through anything in an instant. The weapon comes directly from Gibson's cyberpunk lore, where Molly Millions used a similar garrote. In the movie, it's both ridiculous and awesome, and it still stands out as a highlight of 90s sci-fi design. Fact 19. Johnny Mnemonic was a box office bomb, making only $19 million in the US against its $26 million budget. Critics ripped it apart, with one review calling it Johnny Moronic. Plans for sequels and spin-offs were immediately cancelled, but on home video and cable the film found an audience. Its dated CGI, cheesy dialogue, and bizarre ideas turned it into a cult favorite. Memes about the room service rant and Dolph Lundgren's Jesus Preacher only added to its second life online. Fact 20. Over time, critics began to reevaluate the movie and admit it had been ahead of its time. The film's vision of cyberspace as dirty, dangerous, and corporate controlled feels closer to reality than the slick virtual worlds imagined in other 90s sci-fi. By the real year 2021, articles were calling the movie strangely prophetic. Director Robert Longo even released a black and white cut to emphasize its noir qualities, closer to his original vision. Johnny Mnemonic went from box office joke to cyberpunk cult classic, and that's the weirdest fact of all. And those were 20 weird facts you didn't know about Johnny Mnemonic. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the strangest action movies of the 90s, make sure to subscribe to Pure Action Films for more explosive facts about the greatest, weirdest, and most outrageous action movies ever made.